The double E-wrap cast-on can work beautifully for both Bond and Knitsmart machines. This is something that those manuals refer to as a closed cast-on, meaning that it does not need any finishing once it comes off the machine. The stitches will not ravel from this point. It's a little bit easier to start the carriage knitting beginning with the double E-wrap cast-on than the single E-wrap. Before beginning, you should already have hung your hem or perhaps your cast-on rag if you made one following the movie I showed you earlier, and knitted a few rows of waste yarn and a ravel cord so that we can easily free the real knitting, the main knitting, later. With the carriage at the right, begin by knotting a loop into the main yarn and place that loop on the leftmost needle. Now begin making the cursive letter E with the yarn. That's why this is called E-wrap. We're wrapping in the E shape. It's called double E-wrap because we're wrapping under two needles, over the one on the right, and into the hook of the one on the left. The needle latch must be open for the stitch to form, so if you come up to one that's closed, flick it open with a fingertip. Of course, in order to lay the yarn in a needle hook, the latch must be open. And if it somehow isn't or it pops shut, flick it open with your fingertip, or you can even learn to flick it with the yarn, but it won't create the stitch you want it to if it doesn't get open one way or another. When every needle has been wrapped, wrap around the final needle, bring it forward, and pull back a stitch into it. So that very last stitch is not doubled. Now thread the yarn into the carriage and knit slowly across, and it's not going to have any trouble. When the knitting is complete, just find the ravel cord, pull it out, and you'll have the waste yarn separating from a neatly finished double E-wrap cast-on. This is really a very easy and straightforward process, but there is one tip I will offer beginners. It is when you pull back to make a stitch that you're controlling the size of the stitch that will be on the needle that the carriage will then have to knit through. So coming up right now, that is the motion to learn to keep the same all the time. And you see how I'm bouncing the group of stitches back together or pushing on the needle butts? That helps to even those stitches up, which is both good for looks and for knitting through them in the future. You can also cut a piece of cardboard that's just the right size to allow you to pull the needle back far enough for the perfect stitch and no farther. You'll need to experiment first to find out what the perfect stitch is in any given yarn. But that cardboard spacer can be quite a help. However, it's not difficult to learn to do it by feel either.